Welcome everybody to today's webinar, Last Minute Holiday Prep for Your e-commerce site. I'd like to wish everyone joining us from the UK and Europe a very good afternoon, and good morning to everyone who's joining us from the US and Canada. Demac Media is a leading tech partner who work with us here at Affiliate Attraction, and we're very proud to have them present to you today. They've in actual fact developed a Magento module for us here, which allows the easy integration of the affiliates channel with your Magento suite. I'm going to begin by introducing Jamie Schreter, Vice President of Strategy at Demac Media, who's going to lead us through some tips, tricks, and hints in getting your e-commerce site ready for Q4 and the holiday season. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jamie and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Gavin. I appreciate the introduction, and yeah, to mirror what you said, I really want to thank everybody for, whether you're over in Europe or over here in North America, we really appreciate your attending the webinar and spending some time with us this morning/afternoon. Quickly what we'll do is I just want to tell you a little bit about Demac Media, who we are, give you some reason as to why you should be listening to us, and then we'll go through some of those last-minute tips that Gavin was talking about. So at Demac Media, we're a team of strategists, designers, developers, and our main focus is helping our partners and clients, merchants really, build and grow their online e-commerce and digital business. And our main area of focus and expertise is e-commerce strategy, best practice user experience design, and overall custom development and implementation. To give you a little bit of an idea of who are some of the brands and companies that we work with, here's some of the, sort of a small list of some examples. Includes companies like Ardennes, David's Tea, Macaj, Bench, Rexall, Daddy's Board Shop, and so on and so forth. So again, thank you for joining us today, and if ever you have any questions about either Affiliate Attraction or Demac Media, we'll definitely share our contact information with you after the webinar, and we definitely encourage you to reach out to us whenever you'd like to. So when we say that your key promotional days are around the corner, it's really important to keep that idea in mind. You might be thinking, hey, I have 52 days left, which could feel like a lifetime. But when you take into account development, testing, feedback, etc., that's actually not a lot of time in the world of digital commerce and marketing. The key thing is that it's not too late to plan to be ready. But what you want to think about in this amount of time is how you're going to make the most out of it. So today we're going to talk about the following areas of your business and some last-minute points to make sure that we're as ready as we can be for what is, for most, the busiest time of the year. So that includes marketing, customer service, your infrastructure, overall site merchandising, how you plan to manage your fulfillment, and then we're going to wrap up by just highlighting some do's and, more importantly, some don'ts during the holiday season. And we will leave time at the end of the webinar for questions. On the right side of the panel, you'll see that there is a question section where you can enter your questions. We're going to get to a few of them today, but please, if you do have any questions, please enter them in that side panel, as whatever we don't get to on the webinar today, we are going to make sure we send out a follow-up email, include answers and explanations for everyone's questions. So let's recognize how soon these holidays actually are. The two main ones, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, are pretty much right around the corner. There are 52 days until Black Friday and 55 until Cyber Monday. They are literally right around the corner. So here are the things that we want you to start thinking about if you haven't already done so. First, let's talk about marketing. This year, I actually find myself telling a lot of our customers and partners to proactively react. What this means is that we live in a world of immediate data, and therefore you're going to see some information and some data during the holidays that are going to make you want to adjust or adapt. So be ready for it. Make sure your marketing budget is there to support it, and plan for the fact that we're going to need to react, and quickly. So if you're going to run marketing programs throughout the holidays, and I imagine most of you are, I would make sure that you recommend that you, I would recommend that you make sure that you prepare your budget to adjust your programs as well based on the results of what's being done. And then be proactive and know how much you're willing to adjust so that when it comes time to make those decisions, you're not figuring things out on the spot. know what you're willing to do if something worked also, and what you're willing to try if something doesn't work. Have those kinds of situations planned out and thought out in advance. So for example, if you run a retargeting campaign based off the categories that people visit on your site, but you realize certain categories are driving traffic back to your site and certain categories aren't, maybe the way that you display those retargeting ads in the categories that aren't driving traffic might be a little bit different. You might show product versus just text or imaging, or whatever might be the ultimate test for you. It's also important to have that content ready. So in case you decide to adjust your approach, having your content ready for you is a great way to proactively react. You can be ready to react to something and you don't want to be stuck scrambling for content when you realize that you want to do it. Now keep in mind that you may not change your mind when the time comes, but by having content ready, you're just likely to be more prepared if you do want to make those adjustments. The same goes for the content on your site, by the way. It's hard to plan out, especially for retailers. Because let's be honest, a lot of decisions, especially this time of year, get made last minute. I mean, I'll tell you in our experience, we've seen retailers change their mind like 24 different times between the months of November and December. However, if you know now, or at least have an idea now of what you're planning on offering during, let's say, Boxing Day, don't wait until mid-December to build out that content. Start building it now. Run through testing, see what your team thinks of it, and adjust as you go, so that when that content is ready to go up, you're ready to have it. Now, if changes come down the pipe, which they likely will, you may only need to change like 10% of that campaign or that content, so really you're going to be ahead of the game. And what ends up happening is a lot of companies spend time during the holidays planning marketing and content and building it, which just takes away from all of the things that they should be doing during that time. Now, the challenge with search engine optimization is that it takes time to update your content and have it indexed by sites and by search engines and robots and stuff like that. So if you haven't yet, I'd recommend that you review your content in the coming weeks way ahead of Black Friday and Cyber Monday to make sure that not just from an SEO standpoint, but also from the marketing side, that the most relevant content is available throughout the holiday period. A lot of customers are actually showrooming or window shopping on your site, and the e-commerce, being available and having as much content as possible makes that a lot easier to do. Truth is, if customers can't find the content that they're looking for to support the products that they want or the information that they're looking to find, they may go elsewhere, which, hint, hint, likely your competitor, and it's really just the exact opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So having that content ready gives search engines time to pick it up and rank you accordingly, not to mention gives your customers much information that they need when the time is right and they're looking for it. So truth be told, the sooner you can get your SEO content updated, the better. So in terms of marketing, what are some of the final tips that we have? The key things to take away from this is to plan ahead, but to leave room for adjustment. By now, merchants should have their strategy pretty solidified for the holiday season. If not, you should be at least already working on it. With that said, while formulating or looking at your completed strategy, again, please leave room to adjust. Make sure your strategies are set up and so that you can modify or change it if you need to. A good example is all of a sudden you realize you don't have a style available that you thought you might. Sometimes the allocation of product gets changed or shifted last minute and you have to readjust. Or even if a product sells out quicker than you thought it would, that sounds like a really good problem, but if you have marketing and campaigns and content built around that product and you no longer have it to sell, things need to change. Things like this do come up every year, things that as much as you can plan and be prepared, and you'll hear throughout our webinar today that I'm going to recommend being as prepared as you possibly can be. Things can come up that kind of get in your way or throw up challenges or hurdles. So having backup plans, contingencies really help smooth out how you get over some of these hurdles. And at the end of the day, just improve your overall customer experience on the front end of the site, which in essence is the biggest impact to your holiday success. The next category we want to cover is the customer service. In the world of customer service, it's really important to document and review your processes. If additional hours or late night shifts are needed, or they need to happen, then it's really important to plan for that. If it's not your first holiday season, there's a really good chance that you've experienced what can come up. Similar to some of the challenges that we talked about during the marketing side of things, there are different scenarios or things that can come up that you want to make sure that your team is prepared for. So run them through scenarios like, what's the status of my order, or a customer calling saying that they can't check out. I'm looking for something that I can't find, or hey, my tracking number said my order would be here today, but it's not, and I have a birthday party on Saturday. Whatever customer questions or complaints you may get, run them through those scenarios and give them advice on how they can find the information that they're looking for, and handle the situation. Because all of these situations that can occur during the holidays, they cause customers to get very antsy. So just make sure your team knows how to handle them as best as they possibly can. Make sure they know how to find the information that they would need to satisfy them. Some of that information I'm talking about just means customer information, perhaps the specific order information, or even just product knowledge and information based on the product. When someone's calling up customer service, it's because they really need help. So the more help your customer service team can provide for them, the better their experience will be. Now, the truth is, during the holidays, customers often will expect extra service, just to remind your team to be courteous, patient with people. Understand that even though your customer service rep may be getting their 15th call of the day, this is the one call that customer is placing, and they've chosen to place it to you because they actually want to do business with your company or your site. So the importance of making sure that your customer service people are patient and courteous, it's going to have a long-lasting effect. Keep in mind, it's the holiday season, so it's a stress time not only for you, your team, and your brand, but your shoppers as well. It's likely that in the off-season, they're actually going to remember how you took care of them and how you were able to be there for them, and that's going to really help improve the lifetime value of that customer for your brand, which, to be honest, is really our overall retention strategy for everybody. Is let's keep them coming back and buying more. People, and it's important to understand that people really understand that the holiday season is busy for retailers, so they're actually much more understanding. So if your customer service works with them, that'll go a long way. And keep in mind, this is your chance, because you're getting a lot of traffic, to set a really good impression, especially if it's their first time shopping with you. So you get to set standards and shine with your customers this way. A personal example I can tell you is that my wife actually recently ordered from a site, and I'm sure a lot of us have seen this or heard of this, in the box that came with her product was a handwritten note by someone in the fulfillment process saying, "Thank you for your order. We really appreciate your business. Here's our customer service info. If you ever need us, give us a call." Now, the truth is, she knows that is probably part of some script that someone in the warehouse just sort of followed and wrote. But I can tell you that I've seen her talk to at least 12 friends about this exact service, and I know for a fact that 2 of them have actually bought from that site since. So recognizing that customers get it, they know that this is all part of a ploy to keep them coming back and to keep you happy with them. Sorry, keep them happy with you. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact and give them some intrinsic value. So those kinds of little things can really make a big difference. It's also really important to recognize that this is a very stressful time for your customer service. A lot of people ask me, hey, my customer service person is just someone who answers phones. They don't own the business. So truth be told is, why do they care? And honestly, why should they care? Why do they care if our business does well 6 months down the road? They just want to get through their days in their job right now. Truth is, in most cases, they probably don't. They're probably looking for their Christmas bonus or want to do their job well just to make sure that they can keep their job. And in some cases, actually just do the minimum. But it's really important to recognize internal morale this time of year because, like I mentioned earlier, holidays are a stressful time for everybody, and they, it's just really hard to keep morale internally during the holiday season because of the stress. So if you have an opportunity to award outstanding talent or incentivize them to get certain customer reviews or satisfaction feedback, letting them know that this is a really stressful time and that you're willing to reward them or thank them or appreciate all the things that they're doing to make this as successful as possible really has a very positive impact. We've actually seen things as little as just throwing a nice big Christmas party for your staff or offering everyone a bottle of wine or incentive to get a slightly bigger Christmas bonus. All these little things give them incentive to really want to do better and see more success for the company. It's also worth mentioning that even though physical or financial incentive is always great, there is something to be said about recognizing that your boss or your superior does in fact care about you and recognize that you're going through a very hard time or it's a very busy time at work. So this kind of reward also just lets them know that you recognize all the hard work they're putting into it and will have a lot of impact on just your internal morale and, in the end, their overall job performance. So a final tip when it comes to customer service, during the holiday season, even during peak promotional seasons if it's not the holidays, the swiftness in which a customer gets their order and the information that you provide for them while they're waiting for their order has an incredibly big impact on their impression of you, your customer service, and especially your brand. So that kind of reaction, that kind of impression is going to pay off in a large way down the road. The next topic we want to talk about is infrastructure and the overall setup of your site. Now, in our industry, we talk a lot about code freezes, especially during this time of year. Now, as we get closer to the major shopping season, all sites have to take measures to ensure the site is going to be stable and healthy while they enjoy, hopefully, higher visitor volume and just better conversion rates all in all. One of these measures that you put into your site is, in fact, implementing a code freeze for the months usually of November and December. Code freeze is a term that really just covers the period of time where no major changes are promoted to your site. Every time that you touch code on your website, even if it's something minor, you are exposing yourself to potential issues or risk of destabilizing your site or affecting other technologies or functionalities on the site. Now, keeping in mind that the idea of major code changes is slightly ambiguous, there are some definite do's and don'ts when you're talking about a code freeze. Now, it's also important to recognize that code freezes don't actually hold true for most retailers. I can tell you that in my 10 years of being in this industry, I've rarely seen a retailer stick to the concept of code freeze and always say, oh, can we just slide this in and can we just make that little thing work? And I'm going to be using air quotes here, but they also imply that things need to be done. And the key thing to recognize during this time is that's quite normal, and people always realize last-minute things they want to do. But our biggest recommendation, and if you take nothing else away from this webinar today, please know that when it comes to making these kinds of decisions, understanding the impact that it could have and weighing the risk versus the reward of doing this kind of work is going to be the answer to your success. Very, very often there's an idea or a thought or a change that you might want to do, but the risk of making that change has such a bigger impact than the reward of making that change would have for you. So if you're looking to complete some development on your site in early to mid-November, just make sure that it's worth the value of what you're doing is worth the risk that you're taking. And the most common example of this that I can think about is trying to fix one product, one example, one scenario, and sacrificing every other product on your site by making a change to that one. It happens way too often, and people then look back and just wonder how they got to where they did. So that last question that you see there on your screen right now, is it worth destabilizing your site? Should be the question that most major developments, and like I said, the word major development might be unique for everyone on this call, but those developments need to be worth the risk of potentially destabilizing your site or causing other issues. So let's talk a little bit about merchandising and more of the front-end fun of the website and e-commerce. Now, first of all, and it's going to sound somewhat repetitive, but it's really important, have your content ready and prepared. Have your products, your images, your descriptions, your catalog, your merchandising, your marketing, have it all ready as much in advance as you can. You want everything prepared ahead of those key promotional dates so that even if a product's not available or you don't have the sample until early November, there's no reason why you can't begin preparing the content for that now or as soon as you can. The more you can prepare in advance, just the less scrambling you'll be doing later. It's also important to note that it's getting a little late in the game to be making major user experience changes to the site and testing things out for the first time. And it's also important to recognize that it's really a good time of year to make sure that you are tracking everything that's happening. This way, when January comes around and the questions about why certain categories didn't do well or why a certain category did better than another one, The ability to look back at November and December and track user flow through the site or product success or checkout success or abandonment, even customer service feedback will give you insight into the info that you're looking for. With all the different things that you can track, it's very important not to forget what you're going to want to know in as much detail as you can after the holiday period is over. The good news is that it's not too late to set up tracking tags, make sure that funnels and your analytics tools are all set up and prepared, even set up the different things that you're going to want to know. It's not too late to start doing that or thinking about it. There's a very good chance that a lot of you have already done that and are already gone down this process, but I want to make sure that we don't forget to do that. The key thing is don't just think about now, think about what you're going to want to know about now at a later date. Having that kind of preparedness is really going to help you assess and build for future promotional seasons and really adjust the different kinds of strategies that you're going to want to implement in the first quarter of next year. Now that being said, there are little things that we have noticed in the past that helped. So when we talk about major user experience changes and weighing risk versus reward, it's also worth considering some minor things that you can do where the risk of doing them is very low and the reward may be a lot higher than you might predict. So you might realize tomorrow that, hey, you know what, right now I've been titling my checkout page as checkout, whereas if I were to say the word secure checkout and put a little picture of a lock, perhaps maybe on a reward a security badge, it might give my customers the good feeling of security that all their personal information is being kept well, and security being such a concern these days is really might have a big impact, where the risk of actually just changing text on your site could be very, very small. So the key things to take away from that, again, is just make sure you weigh your risk versus reward. Low risk, high reward, worth it. High risk, low reward, not so much. Next topic to cover is fulfillment. How you plan to fulfill additional orders and how you forecast the order volume coming in has a dual effect of making you operate to the maximum efficiency that you can, also having an impact on your customer service. First thing to note is actually planning out your inventory. Now this really is based off allocation and forecasting, and for some merchants or retailers who are perhaps going into e-commerce or online selling for the first holiday season, this might be a slightly harder thing to do and it requires a little more guesswork. But in the past, if you've been through this process before, using that data, what worked, what didn't, if certain products that were involved in certain marketing pieces had that much more of a success rate, will really help you plan out your inventory, because there's nothing worse than having a really exciting style or a really hot category of product that people really want and that gets sold out before you can even really hit the major push of the holiday season. And sometimes it's just too late to get more in stock or take away from the stores or any other element that you can have to get that site. So inventory planning and forecasting is incredibly important and really, really key to making sure that you see some success. Also, making your process internally more efficient will just make sure that your internal warehouse team functions better. And also, and I know this sounds repetitive with the customer service area, is that it'll just help keep internal morale much higher. And we'll talk a little bit about how the fulfillment process and planning is very similar to customer service. Because it's also really, really important not to forget that the impact, it's just not important to forget the impact a better fulfillment process and more efficient fulfillment of your orders has on the end user, as well as just your bottom line and then being efficient internally. You can have a really great user experience in the front end when placing your order, and your site could be great and work well, your marketing was perfect, it got them back to the site. But it's extremely, extremely frustrating to wait a day, a week, or whatever it takes to get your package and then discover you got the wrong size or the wrong color, or even if it just took longer than you thought it originally would. Notify your customers of what holiday shipping times are like. And sometimes you even have to add a little bit of lead time to make sure that they're aware that this is the busiest time of year, and if they're going to order online, they have to prepare to get their package on a certain date. Now, if you're a retailer and you have a brick and mortar presence and you have the pickup in store availability, or are even willing to ship from your warehouse to one of your stores as an opportunity for your customer to get it, That's actually an amazing opportunity. Customers love that kind of stuff, but you need to make sure that they have a really easy idea of understanding of how they can do that and that it's available. It's just sometimes offered as an opportunity, but not really shown to the customer that it's an option. So letting a customer know the most efficient and quickest way they can get their order really has a very big impact, because it's really the holidays, and these orders are more time sensitive than they usually are. And like I mentioned, all the rules that we discussed while talking about customer service apply here as well. So make sure that certain scenarios are run through, like if a member of your warehouse can't find something they're looking for to fulfill, or if they're looking to actually ship out the package but they can't ship the printing label because it just won't ship, or if there's a paper jam or the printer itself just dies down. I mean, I've even heard of of warehouses losing an hour of fulfillment because the printer ran out of paper. These kinds of scenarios, these little things, do have an impact. So if you can run through scenarios and talk through the potential challenges or hurdles that your team may face, it'll really prepare you in getting ready for the holiday season. And the truth is, anything that you may have experienced last holiday season that disrupted your process is worth running with the team. And also, even if you have experience and you've been down this road before, there's a chance that you have yet to hit a certain hurdle or a challenge that you might come across this year as your company and your business grows. So even if you have been in the world of e-commerce for some time, I still would very highly recommend reaching out to your network and peers in the same industry and seeing some of the challenges that they have encountered. It'll really help you both be as prepared as you can be for the holiday season. And that's, by the way, the key advice if this is your first time or your first holiday season in the e-commerce realm. If you don't have any past history like planning inventory, you may not just have the experience of what kind of scenarios you might run into as your order volume and your the time pressure sort of increases. So again, please reach out to your network, speak to the companies, even your e-commerce development partner, a company like Demac Media that you're working with, would have a lot of insight into the kinds of things that you might expect, and really give you some good advice. I can tell you for sure that here at Demac, we're, if not months, weeks into discussing all the ways that we can make sure that we're on top of things to help our customers through this crazy, crazy time. So the better you forecast, just the more ready you'll be. Something when it comes to fulfillment that's also really very much worth discussing and taking note of is shipping options. Shipping costs and options can be a huge, it's probably one of the biggest contributors actually to abandoned carts. So really the more options you have, the better. There are many different things that you can do, and like I was saying earlier, it's really important that your customers know all the different ways that they can get the package sent to them. So if you can ship to a post office or provide expedited next day shipping, customers love that kind of stuff. The more option they have, the better it is. If, like I said earlier, if you have a brick and mortar presence and you have stores that you can either ship the product to or have them go pick up their orders in store, that would be just ideal. The one thing to remember is that if you can, as much as we love to build the success in business online, the omni-channel concept is becoming more and more prevalent, and if it's not completely adopted by your company yet, it is undoubtedly being discussed internally. So if you can use the online store to get them into your physical brick and mortar presence, even if it's just to pick up an order, it gives you a chance to build that relationship with them, upsell them, cross-sell them, and even if you allow returns to your stores, which the holidays unfortunately do bring a lot of that, again, it brings them into your environment that you can then maintain that relationship and perhaps save the sale. So if those options are available to you and you have that opportunity, highly, highly recommend that you take advantage of it as much as you can. So lastly, before we kind of conclude the webinar, is I want to really talk a little bit about what to avoid. There's a lot of things that we recommend that you do and that you focus on, but it's also important to recognize some things that you might want to avoid doing during the holiday season. Now, I should probably say that there's a lot of things. There's probably a lot of, and it's going to be very unique to your business, but there's a lot of things that you might want to be wary of. Here are two key things that we've really seen be a consistent sort of stopgap or challenge for a lot of our partners during the holiday season. One is don't do anything that has really big weight on your e-commerce system, or destabilize your site. Your site might be running really well and smoothly and offering terrific performance for your customers and your shoppers, and then an executive logs into your backend and runs a very heavy report that actually uses up server memory, and it actually starts to bring down the performance of the site. When in fact the report can be run during a quieter time of the day, or even over the weekend or late at night. It really doesn't need to be run. There's also a really good chance to look back at if this kind of want during the holiday season, plan about when you're going to grab this data and how you're going to do so. Using third-party tools like Google Analytics or a third-party analytics tool, or even your back-end ERP, which is likely very often getting fed data from your e-commerce site. Systems that don't affect the front-end performance of your site, using these systems to generate the data you're looking for will really help avoid seeing some of this challenge. One example, we've actually seen one of our customers start to change their product catalog during their busiest day of the year. I think it was Cyber Monday, and they actually invalidated their site cache and were trying to rebuild indexes. I think it was around noon, and brought their site down to a much slower performance because they were trying to change, I think it was 1 or 2 different products. So this is a really good example of risk versus reward, and they had a couple of hours of slower performance because they didn't really plan properly for managing their system. So I guess the key thing to look at here is don't work on the engine while you're going 1,000 miles a minute. Sometimes allowing for one little thing that's not ideal to continue will keep the rest working really, really smoothly. The second and a really important thing that I want to kind of convey today is talking about your competition a little bit. From a marketing standpoint, it's just, and not even during the holidays, but really all year round, it's a huge no-no to let your customers' sites sway you. There is a plethora of clients of other sites out there and sites that you might consider competition that will be doing things differently, merchandising, marketing, promoting things differently than you do. And without fail, every year we get calls from some of our clients, even an hour into Black Friday, oh my God, look what my competitor is doing. That's a great idea. Let's do that. We got to jump on it. Now, it's a really good idea to keep an eye on alternatives and, like I said earlier, plan for contingencies and even keep an eye on your competitors and what it is that they're doing. But the point I'm trying to get across is that you got to do what's best for you. Your program that you've designed, your strategy, may be best for you. It's your approach, it's your strategy that's best for your company. Just because a competitor is doing something different, it doesn't mean that you have to adjust or change your campaign to match or beat them. And it really brings us back to evaluating risk or reward. Plan ahead and think intelligently and build up your strategy based on data, based on your site, your company, and your information, and then be confident in executing it. What your competitors are doing the day of might seem like a better approach in theory, but you have no idea, A, what it cost them to do, B, what their sales are from that approach, C, if they're seeing success, and really, overall, what drove them to do that. There's the value in doing competitive analysis, but there's also a value in not doing everything your competitor is doing and not changing something that you've spent time building just because you saw it somewhere else. Now, the last thing I want to say is, it's not lost on me that earlier I told you to be prepared to adjust, and now I'm kind of warning you against adjusting. But the key thing to remember is that if you are going to adjust, just do it for the right reasons. If your data, your site performance drives change, I'm all for it. If your competitor is doing something and it's kind of making you a little bit nervous about them pulling ahead, so you adjust kind of blindly, that's what concerns me. The beauty of our industry is that results in data is pretty much instant. So by letting a competitor's actions drive your decisions without knowing all the facts about why they do what they do, that I would recommend against every time. So again, I want to thank you guys for taking the time out to join us for the webinar today. I hope that we were able to give you some insight into some of the major areas of your business, and as well just give you some tips on things that you might want to look forward to doing, things you can take advantage of because there is still some time to do things, and also things you might want to avoid this time of year. We will spend a few minutes now answering some questions that are coming through the webinar here. Like I said, we'll answer a few of them today, but if any questions don't get answered, please don't worry. We will be sending out a follow-up email with all the questions that were answered and some responses to each and every one of them. So we'll take a few questions right now. Let's take a look here. I see one coming in. Since this is my first holiday season in e-commerce, I don't have any data to help with forecasting or know what to expect. So is there any additional advice for a first-time merchant? Yeah, so this is something that we did discuss a little bit today. Truth is, you're likely going to be surprised by some of the challenges you're going to face and some of the successes that you're going to see. I maintain the recommendation of talk to people in your industry, talk to your peers, talk to people even in your internal company who've perhaps worked on these kinds of sites before in other parts of their career. Just hearing these kinds of stories will really help give you some ideas on what you might expect. But remember, you're likely to get surprised. You're likely to see some things that you weren't expecting. So I guess just really preparing your team to adapt and adjust and work together will really give you a lot of potential for success. Okay, taking just a few more questions before we wrap up here. Here's one. You mentioned changing the words checkout to secure checkout. Can you provide any other examples of minor UX changes that had some impact with customers? Yeah, that's a good question. We have seen secure checkout adding kind of security, words like secure, a little picture of a lock, security badges on the checkout really give people much more comfort and have more of an impact. Also, believe it or not, just some customers really have given feedback that unclear error messages and issues with just getting through the site have really stopped them from shopping and helped them abandon their cart. So making sure that your error messages are clear on product pages, checkout, wherever really helps avoid customer frustration and just overall bad user experience. Okay, let's take one more before we wrap up. Here's one. If I could only focus on just one thing before the holidays, what would it be? What would be the most important thing? I love that. There's always a lot of questions about like, hey, what's the one thing? What's the trick? What's the key? And I'd love to tell you that there is actually just one specific thing that is really guaranteed to give you success. But truth is, there is no one thing, because every company is different. So the answer is yes, there may be one critical thing for your business, for your company that would really be good for you, but there's a really good chance that it's very different from the guy sitting next to you. So I know that's not the answer that you're looking for, but this is my recommendation. Spend the time, find out what's going to bring the most value to your company. If your fulfillment team is already having trouble getting orders out, then tighten that part up. If you're internally perfect, as I'm sure most of you are, maybe just content preparation should be your main focus, or marketing budget or allocation spend. Just remember, let the value to your business drive your business decision, and I promise you'll see success. Okay, so with that, I think we're gonna wrap up the webinar for today. Again, I want to thank you all for attending. We really appreciate the time today. We did see some more questions come in, so we will send out a follow-up email with all that information out to you. And on the screen now, you have both Gavin's and my contact information. So again, we encourage you to reach out if you have any questions or need any kind of help or support during this period or in the next. So again, thank you guys for the time today. Really appreciate it. And Gavin, I'll kick it back over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Jamie. It was a great insight into things to take on board, but also things to avoid with the upcoming holiday season. So if anyone does have any more follow-up questions or things they'd like to discuss, our details are on the screen, so please do not hesitate to reach out and get in touch. And you will be receiving an email shortly with a very nice ebook that Demac has kindly put together, summarizing some of the main contents from today. I'd like to thank you once again all for joining and wish you a very good end or start to your day, and good luck with the Q4 and holiday season. So thanks again, and have a good one.